And this is Jenn Gray, and welcome to Be Genuine Podcast. It is my heart that by the end of this episode, you believe that your story matters and that your authenticity is your superpower.
Welcome to the stage, Jenn Gray.
Oh, hold that thought. All right, friends, have you ever moved? You guys know how crazy, insanely stressful that can be. And I have a podcast partner that absolutely is a solution to this problem. If you are moving anywhere near the Atlanta area, you guys have got to call these guys. There is a company that genuinely makes the process as stress-free as possible. Atlanta Pack and Load boasts nearly 30 years of experience providing customized packing, moving, and storage solutions. They are fully licensed, fully insured, Better Business Bureau accredited, and the trusted moving partner for realtors all over Georgia. Call today for a free quote and make sure you let them know that you heard them right here on Be Genuine Podcast. 770-779-8959 or find them online. All of their info will be in the show notes. Move the smart way. Move the pack and load way. Hi, friends. I am so excited for today's episode. Like, seriously, you are in for such a treat. I know I say that on almost every episode because I get excited about a lot of things, but seriously, the man sitting with me on this episode has completely transformed my life, and I don't say that lightly. But let me go ahead and introduce him before we go ahead and jump in and get started. This is Dr. John D'Ambrosio. He's on a mission to revolutionize wellness by helping people optimize their health naturally. As one of the driving forces behind Wellness Oasis, he blends cutting-edge techniques like the BioCharger, brain tap, cranial release, and zone technique to unlock peak vitality. With a deep expertise in how the cranium, durabrain, and sacrum work, he collaborates with Dr. Kelly Peterson, an upper cervical specialist, to offer advanced, non-invasive care. Passionate about holistic health, fasting, and natural living, Dr. John empowers others to take charge of their well-being. You can learn more about him on Wellness Oasis, but I'll put all those links in the show notes for you guys to check out. But first of all, Dr. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is so great to be here. I've loved watching your journey. It's just been inspiring and amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, and honestly, you are such a huge part of it. And I almost didn't even want to read this because I could have gone on and on about your bio and all of the things that you've accomplished. And I want to get to that. But to set this up, I want you to know what this man and his expertise, how it has completely transformed my life. So we got connected through social media. He was local. It's been a little over a year, right?
Yeah,
February.
absolutely. Yep.
And it started out, I helped him with a dog sat, and he's like,
Yes.
then hey, come check out my space. I'd love to show you my office. I'm already a chiropractic fan, and I'm assuming what he's going to show me. And then y'all, my mind was literally blown. But what I thought was interesting was, first off, your mind was a little bit blown because he started off with this body scan, and he's expecting someone he's watching on social media who works out every day, who is big time into mindset and seems to be on her game. He expected to show me what my optimal health looked like. We literally did the scan twice the first time because he did not believe the results the first time. And then the reality was that a lot of things were disconnected for me, right? It was evident that my brain was healthy, which was great. But the oddity was the fact that my body was completely disconnected from my brain. It was like overwhelmed with stress and all of that. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, what were your thoughts when you first did the scan and you knew you could help me, but kind of walk me through from your side of things?
Yeah, so I love doing those scans because they give me so much information. And you walked in, you're vibrant, you're young. So, you kind of get a good read on what you expect a scan to look like. And you can always be wrong. And there's a real disconnect between how you feel and how you function. And I'm checking how you function. But again, walking in, you're glowing. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a really good scan. I'm going to have tons of good news. And it wasn't a horrible scan, but it wasn't what I expected. There was a lot of inflammation. There was a lot of fight or flight. You were kind of being burnt out. And like you said perfectly, there was a disconnect between what your brain was trying to do and how it was talking to the rest of your body. And once we saw that, it let us know, okay, this is what you need. This is how it needs to be performed. Because if I went and did something a little more invasive, which may not feel invasive to the normal person, but with your level of inflammation, it would have actually caused chaos. So we had to kind of follow a specific set of steps based on what this was. And then you responded great, because then we did the rescan after 12 visits.
Yeah.
You got younger, you got more balanced, you became less inflamed. It was where we wanted to go, but the starting point was not what I expected.
Yeah. And so it started out, like we said, just as instead of here's the great news of where you're at so you can kind of know what healthy looks like, it became deep diving. And here's what I love about Dr. John. He brings words to how you feel, but you have no idea how to communicate. Because, like, for instance, when I say like separated my mind to my body, one thing that I noticed, it seems so small, but it was such a huge, significant example of how that worked. Like, I would literally be with my kids and something would be funny. And instead of laughing, I would literally logistically or like logically say, that was funny. Like,
I remember you telling me that.
And that that was a very silly, example, as there's much more deeper examples that we even experienced. But that was just one indication of how everything was messed up. And for me, like, I sleep great. Maybe you are listening to this and you're like, I've never struggled with sleep. Like, I sleep amazing. I would have said that too. Like, I am so fortunate that when I put my head on that pillow, 3.2 seconds later, I am out. And so if you had told me that I had any issues sleeping, I would have been like, you're crazy. Like, I go to bed. But also I was waking up tired, right? It's like I could never get enough sleep, even though I would just push through because I was super stubborn and I was like, I can do hard things, right? But even one of the most fascinating parts of the scan was you said, Jen, your brain is never shutting down.
Right.
And I know what you told, but what is that significant, like, for someone else, so maybe some things they can look out for where they could be having a similar reaction, or what does that even mean? How can my brain not shut down even though I'm going to sleep, like, immediately when headed to the pillow?
Right. And that's really cool, because one of the aspects of the scan is you get a 24-hour picture of what your brain is doing. So I can see when you're waking up. So it's like, if there's a peak here, you normally wake up at 4 a.m. or, well, yeah, I do. I kind of glance. I don't know why. How did you know that? Well, it's all here. You crash around 2:00. Yeah. You're ready for bed at 10, you're done. But then all of a sudden around 12:30, you just kind of wake up and maybe you're just like, I'm not tired anymore. And you see that. So the brain is supposed to at night go into this deep sleep. And that's when all this healing takes place. Your body kind of shuts down. It never shuts down because your brain is always going, but it needs to function at a different level. Different brain waves start to be emitted and your body goes into a healing state, and you could see it. You think you're sleeping. And a lot of times it's people, you're not really asleep. You're either not in a deep sleep, and some people, they just pass out from exhaustion. So their brain's not really regenerating, but they just can't function anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly. So here's the thing. So here's what was crazy. So when I went through like my first set of sessions, we were doing a lot of the brain tap work, right? We're doing a lot of meditations. And even like throughout the day, I was consuming a whole lot of caffeine and realized it's just because I'm trying to keep my body going, but it actually needed to slow down to speed up, right? It actually needed to heal instead of me just like pushing through with horrible additives and creating this really unhealthy life. And so I can say it was amazing, but you also know those early morning texts that you got from me where I was panicking and I'm like, John, I have been up for like 2 hours overnight and having these horrific nightmares.
Remember that? Yeah.
It's like, this is working so fast. And I'm like, this is working? Like, what? Like, why is this? Does not seem like a good thing. I'm like, I was sleeping fine and now I'm not sleeping fine. And explain what that process is, why that.
So that's really cool. And I love that it happened so quickly for you. I mean, I felt bad that you were having these nightmares, right? But the body stores emotions. It stores trauma, and it stores it usually in the fascia is a big spot. And the work we do, your brain can actually process that. Instead of storing it and keeping it there, it releases it. And when it releases, some people laugh, some people cry, some people have nightmares. Some people may even have a brief panic attack, and that's it. But now your body has said, okay, we're done with it. We've dealt with it. It's gone. But until then, you're holding on to it, and it could be causing other issues. You don't even know.
Right. And that's what was so shocking, as you just told me. You said, Jen, I want you to think of the nightmare and get yourself through the nightmare, right? Like, think on the other side of it, and then you're literally going to release the power it has over you, and it's going to go away. And y'all, I'm going to be straight up real. I was like, that sounds too good to be true. I'm just going to like imagine the worst thing happens, right? Like whatever the nightmare was, it was these traumas and these fears that were these deep, deep fears that were coming out in very, very, very clear graphic ways. And I imagined the worst thing. I imagined getting on the other side of it. And I mean, all of us have been through really hard things, right? And we're all still standing, right? So this was like another huge example for me of, okay, I can do hard things. And some of that means actually feeling what it would feel like and then releasing that weight over me. And so to learn that my brain had literally taught itself to not shut down so that I didn't have to deal with those things shows the power of our brains, but it also shows that it can be used to help us and used to hurt us, which is why the healing is so huge. Because now, I mean, even after 12 sessions, my sleep looked totally different. I was actually getting that deep sleep and learning how to process things that I didn't even know that I needed to process, and to physically feel the difference in the head and heart and my body. And I'm going to throw this out there because I think one of the worst things that I don't even know what culture really teaches it, but I learned that we can't trust our gut. Right. And so then we learn to silence our gut. What are your thoughts on that? Just even from the psychological standpoint and the physiological standpoint, what are your thoughts?
I mean, we're given intuition for a reason. We don't have anything God-given that was like, oh, that was a mistake. So we have this, but we are taught to, follow the line. You cannot veer off this path. This is what the schools teach. This is what society teaches. And you're taught to dumb that down, suppress feelings, and I'm not saying everyone should be out there crying and, having safe spaces and things like that, but you do need to be able to experience and say, this is what I'm feeling right now. I may not need to throw it on everybody, but I need to experience it myself. And if I bury that and hold it in, there's consequences.
And that's absolutely what I learned. What I thought was getting through things, I realized that my pattern in my whole life has been just to shove it, right? Like, I want life to be good. Like, even if I've gone through hard things, I'm the kind of person, I'm not going to sit in it, because the joy, the outside joy was this escape from the pain that I was actually living. And I created this like fake world instead of knowing and feeling that I can work through these emotions and actually feel them. There's a lot of things that I had to go through, even like journaling, like self-forgiveness, and just like letting go of these things that I had shoved instead of dealt with. And that was a huge eye-opening thing for me that I hadn't even, because I didn't think it was affecting me on the daily. And that's what this body scan showed me, is that you can't outsmart your body. And it was very evident that, what I do is this very creative industry. And what you were showing me, you're like, Jen, your brain is not even able to be innovative and creative because it's just not healed, right?
Yeah. And I remember looking at that and talking to you as you were progressing. You're breaking through. You're going to be at this level that you didn't even know existed. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to you about, I said, a lot of people say fake it till you make it. And then you said it's not fake it till you make it. And most people do that and look at it that way. And it's just, you think it's semantics, but it's not. So what was your take on that? It's not fake it till you make it.
It's own it, own where you are. Mm-hmm. And like, for me, it's like, even you take this into business and life, it's like, be a beginner, like just be honest with where you are and show up where you are and be present. And instead of, just pretending it's not there, pretending you're someone that you're not, and all of that. Because you guys know, like, my message is authenticity. And what's so crazy is so much of what I learned through Dr. John is my authenticity was actually even built on, I guess I could say lie. I know it doesn't feel good to say, but it really was.
It was an intentional lie. It was just suppressed truth.
So good. And so again, maybe you're like that, maybe the whole, and you're like, well, Jen, I cry. Like, I experience the emotions and I also cried, but there's a lot of things that I didn't take ownership over and I didn't deal with. And there's a big difference. And I believe that until we learn to have empathy even to ourselves, and we learn to have this forgiveness, and we learn to take the ownership, then we're not really ever progressing, right? We're getting older, but we may be stuck in a 15-year-old body, right? Because we've not dealt with what is holding us back. And so then we're not even progressing. So clearly this conversation is probably not one you would expect me to have with a chiropractor, right? That was the whole point. I want you to see how different you think, Dr. John. I love chiropractors. Like I said, I think the practice is amazing. but how did you get here? What was the journey for you? You went to chiropractor school like every other chiropractor, but you practice so different. Like, I would love for you just to, wherever you want to start in your journey, but kind of walk us through to how you got from starting to where you are now.
I mean, I can't really pinpoint where that actually happened, but I do know I got into chiropractic because my sister was having skin and breathing issues when she was younger, and she was much younger than me. So you help raise somebody, it was, now we're, brother and sister relationship, but then it was more, I don't want to say parent, but we help parent.
It is.
So when I saw she was having these problems at a very young age, 3 or 4 years old, and my mom was panicking, going to the pediatrician, what's going on? She's breaking out and breathing issues. And they couldn't figure it out. They had my parents washing the walls down with bleach. It worked initially, and then came back after a month. They had to do it again. And it got to the point where it was every day I would come home from school and just smell the bleach. And she wasn't getting better. And then my mom took her to a chiropractor because she had forgotten when she was young, she was helped with her asthma from a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. And within a month, my sister was great. So that my journey wasn't like I hurt myself as an athlete or something, and that's why I got into chiropractic. It was because I saw it could help change lives, and not just at a pain level, but at a full body level. And then it just kind of progressed. I wanted to be really specific. I knew there's just hundreds of chiropractic techniques out there, and they all have merit. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to find the ones that were most honoring to the body, the ones that had the biggest effect, the most, I'm going to say bang for your buck, but the most bang for your buck, that really have a global effect on health. And it just kind of wormed me through these different paths. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up where I am. And I love where I am. The cranial work came about because my wife had horrible TMJ. You couldn't even touch her ear and she would burst into tears. I couldn't go near her, and nothing that I did helped. And I researched and I saw cranial work. Well, there's 22 movable bones of the skull. Maybe that has some sort of effect on the jaw. It seemed like it would. I learned the technique, and that was the only thing that helped her. And her jaw is great now. And from that, I ended up then helping teach the technique, flying around the country, helping teach other practitioners about that. Mm. And then seeing how that affected, because like I said, the fascia holds emotions, and people were having all of these different sort of reactions, like this deeper healing. And it just kind of helped me. Every step built on the next one. And the cool thing is, and going back to you, is you didn't come in saying, oh, this hurts. Mm-mm. Or that. You came in, let me check out what you have.
Yeah.
And based on that, you were open enough to say, oh, this isn't good. Let's see how we could change this. And this is an experience that you maybe would not have had going somewhere else, just because you're like, I feel good. I don't need to investigate any further. So, I mean, kudos to you to being open to saying this needs to be addressed.
I mean, I would say the irony, but I don't believe in the irony, and I don't believe in the coincidences, because I was on a total healing journey, like starting in like March of 2023, and doing a lot of inner soul work, right? Just healing from things, because I'd gotten myself in situations where, again, you know that you can either become a victim or you can learn it, and you can take ownership, and you can become a better person on the other side. And so that's part of the journey that I was in, was just refiguring out who I was and saying, Jen, like, you're acting like this is just like this dress rehearsal and we only get one shot. And if I don't want to repeat these chapters, then I've got to do something different. And so it was, again, I realized I was the queen of wearing masks. I was the queen of being all things to all people. And I didn't even know how to even get rid of that. And I became an avid reader. I'm like, let me just learn. I was just soaking up all of these things. And so the fact that you even came into my world at the point of my journey that you did is totally a God thing, because I mean, I was like 10 months into this journey, and I didn't know what I needed next, right? I just knew that I wanted to be in a better space. And I didn't know my limitations were found in the way that my brain was working and how that was connecting to my whole body. And when you talk about even like the cranial work, like he does, so he presses your head and like finds like what spot hurts. And I'm like, again, this is nuts. And thinking like, oh, I bet it's just always that same spot. But then no, like I go in for these repeat visits, and like every time and I have a couple of defaults so that, my body usually goes to of, where the blockages are and where my stress goes to, or what issues come up, and, those limiting beliefs that keep arising, and knowing that that's all connected. And where, he'll go and he's like, oh, it's this. And so it's, worry, or it's, elimination, or, whatever it ties to, and then combating that with the BioCharger. And so I want to talk right now, tell people about the BioCharger. And what I had heard about it when Jessie Lee, my mentor, was going through cancer, she actually purchased one and had it in her home, and she would go live, and you could see like the camera was way far on the other side of the room, and you saw her sitting in the same room as this BioCharger. I love when I try to tell people about it. I'm like, listen, I don't even know. It's like a Tesla thing in the middle, and it has like ions, and it has like, it just like goes, but you don't really feel it. Like sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't. But tell people about what that is and what the benefits are of the BioCharger.
So the BioCharger is really cool. And because I've been in practice for over 30 years, people initially, when I first started caring for them, I noticed they changed. They started to heal very quickly. And over time, that kind of slowed down. And I couldn't figure out why. And then the scans that I do show, well, they don't have the cellular energy to heal. Why is that? And then, well, the food is, a lot of it's processed much more than before. Most people don't get outside in the sun. They don't get out, walking on the beach, being by the ocean. There's so many factors. So, and, the electronic waves in the air, the EMFs and stuff. So I think that kind of dumbed down your ability to heal because it just takes so much out of you. And again, most people, as you know, are in fight or flight. So they're just, brains aren't shutting down. So they're just very low on energy. So I said, well, how can I give them this energy? It's not going to be dietary because they need to be able to process it, and they can't process it. I need something that's going to just put the energy in their body at the cellular level. And through tons of research, I found the BioCharger. And the BioCharger is cool because it has 4 different technologies. So it's got pulsed electromagnetic frequency as part of it. And that's what the earth gives off. And it's very healing. It can help bones heal quicker. It has so many benefits, but it amplifies that. Then there's a Tesla coil. And that's really cool because it gives off specific frequencies for healing. There's noble gases around it in tubes that glow once the Tesla coil fires up, and you're getting the benefits of that light. And on the top, there's a Rife unit, which is sound, which is used for healing. So you're getting all of these energies flooding your body at once, and not in a hitting you hard way. Like you said, some people feel a tingling, some people feel warm, some people feel nothing. But they're getting that energy, and I could show them that. I have a few things that I use. It's kind of cool, a light bulb that I'll put behind them to show that the energy is going into you. And that gives them the energy to then heal. So now they have all this energy and fuel, then they'll get adjusted. And now, okay, the interference is removed. They have the resources. And then we go to the brain tap, which I could just jump into that.
Yeah, perfect.
I think it was Roger Sperry won a Nobel Prize because he discovered that 90% of the brain's energy is used to hold you upright in gravity. So after you get adjusted, your brain is open to change. So if I just send you out into the world and somebody cuts you off, you got a bad text, you get angry, and that gets locked in. I want the healing to be locked in. So we take you out of gravity, we put you in the anti-zero gravity chairs, so you're lying back, and then you put on this brain tap headset, which there's light that goes into your ears, acupressure points, light that go into your eyes, although they're closed. And then there's holographic sound that just goes through, and it helps heal the brain and just lock it into that point. So when you leave, someone can cut you off. You'll still get angry, but it is not going to affect your healing. So you're at a totally different level. So at that point, and Dr. Kelly and I would work together because I really focus on the cranium and the dura. She focuses very specific on the first 2 vertebrae. So it marries perfectly. But what we do is then we only need to see you once a week at that point because of everything we've put together. So it's like planting a seed. You plant the seed, you water it, you give it sun and fertilizer. If you dig it up every day, is there a root yet or is there a root yet? That's not the way to go. You just let it sit. And then in another week, okay, it needs a little more. That's how we practice. And people just really respond well.
I love that. So on top of the brain tap, another thing that you had me get from the get-go was a grounding.
Yes.
And so talk about that, because these are resources, I've got people all over, right? Like, first of all, I hope I've given you enough reason to book a ticket to Atlanta and get on Dr. John and Kelly's calendar. But even, here are some ways right now, some resources you can use to even start the healing process, or even, getting yourself in that direction. And so I think the grounding mat and the brain tap, so kind of explain what that looks like, what app they would need, what is the best product. All right, friends, we still have a lot of goodness to dive into, but really quick, I want to interrupt our convo to let you guys know about our next podcast partner. It's Alpha and Omega Automotive. If you are anywhere near Atlanta, this is another great find. As a single mom, one of my biggest needs is to make sure I have an auto repair shop I can trust. And these guys are your first and last stop for automotive repair, standing for quality, honesty, and integrity. With over 25 years in business, their family-owned business offers trusted service at 2 convenient locations. Whether you need routine maintenance or major repairs, they've built a reputation for delivering reliable professional service. Come see why customers rely on them for all of their automotive needs, because with Alpha and Omega, you are always treated like family.
Right. So BrainTap is great because there's a BrainTap app. So we use it in our office to lock in the healing, but we recommend everybody does it at home 3 times a day because that continues the healing. You're in our office for, say, an hour a week. If there's 167 hours left in the week, what you do during that time has a big difference on how you heal. So I want people to do the BrainTap. So in the morning before you get out of bed, there's wake-up ones to get your brain ready for the day. During the day, you pick one kind of just to keep you going. And at night, you lie in bed and you listen again, and it helps get you into that deep sleep so that brain can heal. And I always recommend wearing wired headphones. I don't like the AirPods or things like that because you don't want the Bluetooth going in as well. You're trying to heal your brain. You don't want to have that energy going in. And then grounding mats. I recommend everybody go onto YouTube, the Earthing movie. It's free. Watch that. I have never recommended the Earthing movie to anybody who didn't then immediately either start going outside barefoot or didn't run out and get an earthing mat because it's that powerful. It's a documentary.
Yeah.
But all you do is you plug it in, but it's just the ground is the only part that goes into the wall. So you're actually grounding. All your appliances need to be grounded. Otherwise, there are going to be issues with it. We need to be grounded. We're meant to be outside, but we have rubber soles on our shoes. We have carpets. We have floors. We're separated from that. If you're sitting at your desk and you're working all day, take off your shoes and socks, put them on your feet on the earthing mat. It's going to make a big difference, lowering inflammation and just helping you heal. And that's stuff you can do at home. Earthing mats, Earthing store on Amazon. I think you can get 2 yoga-sized mats for like $99. It's great.
Yeah, no, that was one of my first purchases. So what's so funny is, so I'm a beach girl. Like I love the ocean, and part of what I love about it is how I feel, right? There's like this deep, overwhelming sensation of peace that I only feel at the beach. Well, the more I understood grounding, I'm like, okay, I'm outside in the sun with my bare feet in the sand for hours on hours on hours. And so I'm sure the sound of the waves is part of it.
But sounds from the right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also what happened, so then after I watched this, I not only got the grounding mat, but I started going into my backyard in the morning, barefoot with the dew. And that was the only time I've remotely been able to recreate that feeling of just this peace and just this overwhelming. I mean, it literally feels like I'm washed over with just, okay, it's just this like fresh start, and it was so powerful. And so definitely, if you've never checked out grounding, check out all these resources that he's mentioned.
Yeah, they're great.
Because that is, no matter where you are, that's something that you can very easily add into your life. And again, why are we here? We're trying to become the most authentic versions of ourselves, which is the most healed version. It's the most developed version, right? It's just the best version of ourselves, right? It's not looking like anybody else. It's not trying to recreate and become a cookie cutter. It's just, how can we heal? How can we show up as the most genuine version? And I believe that all of these different steps of healing ultimately create this life that we are excited and proud to live. And so now we've talked about the mind, we've talked about the brain, we've talked about the body and all that. Well, let's go on to this next level, which is very exciting news, because now not only is he just Dr. John, but he is author John. So brand new book just came out. It's hot off the press. It's Want to Lose Weight Fast? Question mark. The details are in the semicolon, right? And it's Want to Lose Weight Fast. It's all in the semicolon. Again, I'll go ahead and link this in the show notes. Definitely check it out. But I want to hear, I haven't heard all of this, right? We've talked some just about my own personal nutrition journey. But when we think fasting, we just think like, I'm going to go without food for a week and this is going to be miserable and I'm just like torturing my body. But I would love for you to talk about maybe just like some basics and some things that people assume that you can kind of, rewire their thinking on fasting.
Yeah. I mean, fasting's been around for thousands of years. Religions do it. People have done it for, health. People have done it for a hunger strike. So I'm not saying you should do it for a hunger strike, but, it's been around. I think the longest fast was medically supervised. It's like 368 days. A person had hundreds of pounds to lose.
Wow.
But that's the world record for fast.
That's crazy.
There's right ways to do fast and there's wrong ways to do fast. But the purpose of a fast, well, there's multiple purposes. One is to give your body a rest, because back in the 70s, we ate 3 meals a day. We didn't have all these snacks. We weren't constantly eating. You had breakfast, most important meal of the day by some, lunch and dinner. And that was really it. Dessert usually followed right after dinner. You're still sitting at the table. They cleared the plate and dessert came out. So you ate 3 times a day. So your insulin levels, every time you eat something short of fat, your insulin levels go up. When they go up, that tells your body, store fat. That's your storage hormone. It's supposed to be there. That's a good thing. If you're eating constantly throughout the day, you're constantly storing. You're never burning. So you can't access that stored fat, but your body just says, oh, because weight loss is so hormonal that anytime insulin goes up, store. Anytime insulin goes up, store. So you're eating. People say, oh, eat 6 small meals a day to keep your energy up. Well, 6 small meals a day means your insulin is up all day long. You're going to store fat all day long. So that's one reason not to be constantly eating and fasting. And another really good reason is your body goes through what's called autophagy. And that's kind of a buzzword now. It's just your body goes through a cleanup. So it says, there's no food coming in. Let's start taking all the garbage cells and recycling them and using them. Gotcha. On top of using now any stored glycogen in your body, the sugar, and then starting to burn the fat off, it's taking and it's actually making you healthier. And there's different lengths of fasts. You can do a 12-hour, a 16-hour, 40 hours are kind of becoming popular. 72 is a little rougher, but definitely doable and starting to gain some traction. But it really depends on what you're looking for. So I wrote the book because there's so many great sources out there, but you have to watch hours of videos and read different books, and it's all over. I wanted to just put something very simple. I didn't want to go into a 400-page book where's the how-to? I just want to read that and you skip everything else. So I wanted to put all in one spot where it's just easy to read. It's fun. It's in a conversational tone. And you could just finish reading the book and say, okay, I know what to do. Let me start fasting tomorrow.
I love that. So I'll give you guys a little glimpse inside. So he's like my source for all the things. So I was in a space where, you feel like you get to one level and you know that you're going to have to make shifts and changes to get to the next level. And that's really where I am. I'm in a really weird space right now of just like building, but like not yet to what I'm building. Right. And in that, I'm like, okay, I know for me when I'm like super competitive. And so if I come up with a challenge and I have to beat this challenge, it's not just like, doesn't just affect one area of my life. It affects my focus. It affects my energy and it affects my discipline. And so I talked to Dr. John as recently as this weekend and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to do something hard. And, here's what I'm going to set out to do. I want you to help me come up with like the nutrition plan to go along with this. And he's like, time out. And I was like, and so I was like, John, I don't want this to be easy, right? Like it has to be hard or I don't get my discipline. But you literally transformed the way that I thought about all of those things, from the movement to the nutrition, to the sleeping, to all of these different elements that even like the protein intake and what that looks like. And so I just created this 40-day plan where with Dr. John's help of exactly what it looks like too. So first of all, for me, it's intermittent fasting. So kind of give an overview. That's probably, again, you probably have heard of intermittent fasting, but there's kind of some different levels and different things. Give kind of the why and what that looks like.
Okay. So most intermittent fasting, it's time restricted eating, is 16-8. Is that what you're doing?
Yep. 16-8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 16-8 is you have an 8-hour window where you eat and a 16-hour window where you fast, and you just drink water during that time. Make sure you get electrolytes because you could start to cramp. You want to make sure, and salt will actually help stop the hunger. So start the morning, little pinch of salt under your tongue. But doing fasting the way you're going to be doing it is great because you're going to start burning the fat. You're going to have energy. You get more clarity. When you start burning fat for fuel, your brain just gets much clearer and much sharper. You get more creative, and you're already so creative. I mean, I think it's just going to bring you to the next level. But the thing about fasting that people, and I've made this mistake, and it's in the book, it's like, okay, 16-8. Well, in my 8-hour window, I'm eating everything. I'm going, and they've done studies like that. And it's like, well, fasting doesn't work because they didn't lose weight over this. Well, of course not.
Right.
Because part of that is say you're skipping breakfast during your 16-hour fasting window. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're in your 8-hour eating window, then you don't try to squeeze in breakfast, lunch, and dinner all in one. That meal's gone. So then you just eat the remaining. And that's going to help, obviously, with weight loss. But then what you eat is important as well. Because during that eating window, you really only want to have 1 or 2 meals. You don't want to eat 5 times because, again, that's just going to keep the insulin up through that period. And if you say, okay, and I talk about this in the book, one of my big things when I was first doing fasting is I love going to Starbucks. And I never liked coffee, but I like chocolate. So I started getting these mochas, ice mochas, and I got to the point where I had 8 pumps of mocha in. And that was like a vent day with 8 pumps of mocha. Almost half the cup was chocolate syrup, but I loved it.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Yeah, it was so
What's
good.
not to love, right? I mean, I'm not a huge chocolate person, but I can imagine if you are, that's yeah.
Yeah, so it was, to me, it was like, well, I'm fasting, so I can have this. But could you imagine the insulin spike that I had there? So I'm kind of taking everything that I did. It's like, oh, I didn't eat for this period. And then I'm like loading myself up with this sugar. And it's like, oh gosh, I didn't realize that it was just negatively affected, because that carries over. And on top of that, while you're fasting, you want to make sure that you're keeping things down. You don't want the insulin spike before you go into your next fast, because then you get all this hunger. And we talk about this with the whey protein. So whey protein is great, but studies have shown that it could spike your blood sugar up more than a slice of white bread. And you think, well, I'm going to start my fast. Before I start, I'm going to have a bunch of whey protein. It's going to get me through my 16 hours. But then you get this ravenous hunger because you have this insulin spike from the protein, and then you get tanks down. And you're just like, oh, I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry. And it makes it so hard. So if you eat something that's more, and I don't want to push any sort of diet, but more ketogenic during your times, it just makes the fasting so much easier, because then your body's getting used to burning fat. Fat is the fuel source. It's not all these carbs. It's not all this glycogen. It's fat. And you could just kind of glide right into that, and you'll have your hunger periods, but hunger always passes. You drink some water, you go for a walk, you distract yourself, and then the hunger is gone. And the cool thing, if you went on a longer fast, and I've done 72-hour fast, you may go to bed and you're like, oh gosh, I'm hungry. But then you wake up and your body is just like it does on every other day, because during the night, your body starts burning all that fat and using it. So you're not starved when you wake up. You're just like, every day so you don't wake up. It's like, I'm going to be hungry tomorrow. I'm going to be hungry. You're not. You're really not. So it makes it more sustainable. And it's not this horrible, painful thing. If you're eating a lot of sugar during those periods, yes, it could be brutal to even go on a 16-hour fast. If you're eating the right foods, and again, not overeating and not eating, 10 meals during your 8-hour period, it just makes fasting so much easier and so much more effective.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so I know that there's other like eating, it's so funny. Addison was like, are you on your diet? I was like, okay, it's not a diet. I am on a nutrition plan.
There you go.
On nutrition. This is not a diet. But a huge part of it for me, that just to keep it simple, is I'm like, I'm not going to have any added sugars, like of any kind, because that really eliminates everything that's processed, right? Everything that's processed has added sugars. Right. And so even just eliminating that. And then for me, I'm trying to not just lose weight and feel better, but I really want to be the strongest that I've been in my life. And so I'm very intentional with the 4-day a week. I'm doing, workouts and doing, weightlifting and things like that. And so my protein level needs to be at a certain amount. So yesterday, I have this 8-hour window and I have 145 grams of protein that I want to get in there. And then I also don't want to be too much in a caloric deficit. I wanted to get like a good number so that I wasn't like, starving, or maybe I didn't need to worry about that. But that was my thought process was, and so I did eat, I probably ate 4 small meals like in that 8 hours, and, just very high protein, and, doing some kind of protein with a veggie or with a fruit or something like that. And then meat, of course, for my last meal. But I will say I not using any type of protein outside of I did Greek yogurt and cottage cheese. And what did I have as my meat? Oh, I did like ground, like a very good grass-fed beef. We did tacos, but I just put it like on some lettuce and I made like a taco salad, per se. So those were kind of the proteins that I did, and I had to stop eating at 6, right? And I was at baseball games until 9 o'clock last night and all of that. And it's so funny that when you're focused, it's completely different. Would I have eaten later had I not been focused? 1,000%. But what it proved to me was I wasn't necessarily hungry. Like you just said, maybe you just need to go to bed, right? Like if you're bored, then let's just go to bed. Let's go for a walk. Let's do something different. But I think that, again, there's something to be said about the intentional focus, and you're not going to accidentally become healthy.
Right. You're really not. Everything you do is either going to make you healthier or less healthy. You're never static. I'm just going to stay at this health.
Right.
Your habits determine which way you go. And it's always like a pendulum. And you just have to make sure it swings more one way than the other if you want to be healthy.
Yeah. So first of all, I hope this conversation hasn't been overwhelming, because that was the antithesis of what I wanted. I know we've talked about a lot of different things, and genuinely, I want you guys, if you are at all within, if you're near an airport, you can fly here. But it's fascinating what you can learn and what he can do to help, shift your body. But even taking these steps, right? Doing the brain tap, finding someone in your area that has a BioCharger. That's why I wanted to explain the BioCharger. It's such a powerful tool. And to be able to start to heal at a cellular level is just another it's another level. And I think it's funny too. I've talked to some, like my aunt and even my mom, and she's like, we just didn't know these things. I'm like, no, but now we do. Right. And even once you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And I think what's powerful is for you to see that there's like a lot of layers of healing outside of just going to therapy. Now, I'm not knocking therapy, go to therapy, right? That is one aspect that absolutely, let's heal that. But then the actual physiological side of you to actually take the time and heal that so that you can function at your optimal level. And here's my thing. I think it's so powerful that our brains can be rewired. We rewired. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you have a faith or what you believe in, but like what I read and what I believe is that, God created you with a purpose and he created you to do something amazing. And I think that for me, I'm like, man, how much more can I do when I heal the body that he's given me? Because, where we all go through all kinds of stuff, but knowing that doesn't have to disqualify you from a healthy future, it gives you the power of, I'm just going to heal and I'm going to, go through what it takes to heal. But kind of in closing, Dr. John, what are some, for someone who's listening to this for the first time, I know we've given them a couple of other resources. What are some things for them to look out for and some ways that they can take control of either the movement, the nutrition, or their mindset that's going to help get them into a more healed state, even from where they are?
Okay. Well, like we said, if you do go to Brain Tap, the app on the App Store, definitely download that. If you want to try to find a BioCharger, they have their own website, Find a BioCharger Near Me. You can find a place that has them. They're all over they're all over the world, but you can use that. Definitely get a grounding mat. Watch the Earthing movie because that's important. And then just stay active and don't take things to excess. Like we're talking about working out, and just to touch on, people say, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week. And it's like, well, when does your body grow that muscle? Well, you're stimulating it at the gym, but it's got to grow when you take time off, when you rest, when you're eating properly. You need to have that balance. So working out 7 days a week, in theory, it's like, yeah, that's what I have to do. But it's like, well, no, half that, because you need to take those days in between to really heal and grow. That muscle's not going to grow if you're just constantly pounding it. You need it to then, okay, it's going to go into a spot where it's like, okay, it's overworked. We need to grow. Then it's going to reach regular level, and then it's going to raise a little bit and get stronger or get bigger because you've given it the time to do that. And everything is kind of like that. Don't go 7 days a week with, I have to. Everything's a process, and you really need to just give yourself a little grace and say, I'm going to give it time, because you'll burn out if you're trying to do things, and then you're not going to be where you want to be. You want to be where you be, you have to be the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race.
I love that. That's so good. See, I told you all you were going to love him. Okay, so I close every episode with this same question. You know my tagline, that your authenticity is your superpower. Mm-hmm. So Dr. John, in your world, in Dr. John isms, I want you to explain how your authenticity is your superpower. What does that mean to you?
To me, it means just being true to yourself, being true to God. And when I was younger, we moved from Brooklyn to New Jersey when I was going into third grade. And from that point on, I was kind of picked on throughout that period. And that allowed me to really become more empathetic, sympathetic to other people, but become a really good listener, because I wasn't part of any real crowds. And so I would sit and I would listen to other people, and I'd feel like I was part of a group. I wasn't, but it just taught me to be a really good listener. And I think that's a lost art these days, especially in the healing professions. You sit and you talk to somebody and you actually listen to what they're saying and hear their story. I mean, that's healing in itself. So I think being authentic is just letting other people be authentic and actually listening.
Yeah. Being in a space to do that around you. I am. And you're so good at that. I mean, that's what I felt so bad when he was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm like releasing this book. I said, clearly we've talked too much about me in our sessions, because I didn't even know you were writing a book. But that's who he is, the most humble, generous man I think I've ever met. And so I'm forever thankful for your work, forever thankful for your friendship, and for your belief in other people. It's one thing to be passionate about your industry, and it's another thing to actually be passionate about the people that you get to serve. And that's how you exemplify that in everything that you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun, and it was a very quick time. I mean,
yeah, it flew by. I know, right? Yes. I mean, we covered a lot of things. And so, okay, so even if people aren't local, where's the best place for them to find you through social media, website? Where's the best place for them to find out who you are and what you do?
Obviously, the Wellness Oasis. There's still, I'm fairly new there. Dr. Kelly and I merged our practices at this beautiful healing facility. It has hyperbaric chamber, infrared sauna, salt cave. I mean, it's amazing there. So they're still building that website, but lifeenhancementcenter.com is my website. It still has all the information about me. Social media, it's the same thing. Life Enhancement Center on Facebook and also on Instagram.
I love it. And like I said, I'll put all this in the show notes so you guys can go follow him and learn all the things. You guys, what a fun episode. And if you find any value in this, ask you one thing. Would you just simply share this with somebody who needs to hear it, who may not know that the Be Genuine podcast even exists? And I want to remind you today, I remind this every time, because people hate people for absolutely no reason. And I love you. And that may seem crazy, but I will choose to love you for no reason until we meet. And I find all the millions of reasons there are to love you. You guys have an amazing week and keep being genuine.